I grew up in Iceland and Denmark. My parents were living, one in Iceland, one in Denmark. And in Iceland, I spent my vacations typically, and in Denmark, I went to school. Growing up in Iceland, in terms of experiencing nature, which there is a lot of in Iceland compared to Denmark, meant that I would have a, how should I say, a long-lasting relationship with it. I knew quite well how tall is this mountain, how long would it take me to climb up, and how fast would a stone roll down. And I also knew, or I learned, that if a car rode across a moss field, it would take 30 years for the tracks, or for the traces of the car to disappear. So growing up in Iceland meant that I knew, without having necessarily learned it, a lot about nature. When I first started hearing about global warming and the need to act against the climate crisis, I think I understood it sort of maybe not necessarily academically, but intuitively, and I quite quickly became engaged in how we perceive nature. What does it mean to actually experience nature, and how are we dependent on nature, and can we even call it nature? So I had a lot of different sort of how should I say, for me quite inspiring considerations. And the thing is, climate, or the climate crisis, is a crisis of many crises, and art is only one of the ways you can react to the climate crisis with. I mean, there's many ways which need to be activated in order to somehow respond to this enormous crisis we're looking at. And as an artist, I can work through my art, but as a civic person, or as an individual, I can also take a stand. I can also try to be accountable for my actions. Me as a person can do something very small, but if we all do that, that will definitely also make a big difference. A work of art can sometimes articulate, or can give structure, can give language to something we feel, but we have not yet found a way of saying it. So people, maybe they somehow correspond with a work of art, and they say, this speaks to me emotionally, or I could even say, this listens to what I want to say. It is as if the artwork in fact expressed, and like art has done for many years, the artwork expressed something that I wanted to say. I worked with the principle of ephemeral, natural phenomena. I've been working with, temperatures or so things that we can't really see or feel, but we just know they're there, and then we sense it in other senses than maybe the eyes, and we cannot hear it, or maybe we can hear it and not see it. So this idea of dematerializing the artwork is maybe not just about a new sort of artistic statement. It's also about the opportunity to explore our own senses, because maybe what we think we experience as reality, maybe that is in fact relative, as our senses, our cognition, and our sort of awareness, and our embodied relationship is very much culturally shaped. And if we could start to question our senses and say, am I really seeing this? Can I maybe see it differently? If we suddenly can start to change the technique of observing, or the nature of an experience, then we might also change our view. We might also change our mind. There's never an experience without somebody also contributing to it. This is very important, and there is this notion of, if the viewer, or if the person experiencing, is given the opportunity to actually express yourself, you can create a much bigger experience. And ephemera or ephemeral art is very good at hosting the presence of a viewer, because there's really nothing there almost, right? So the presence of a viewer becomes, I would argue, even more important. I am in absolutely no doubt that art can change society, 100%. It might not be very much, and art is one of many voices that is needed, for instance, to challenge the climate crisis. The culture is about identity and about questioning whether the values that we have are synchronized with the times in which we live. Because sometimes you live in a place where the values are 20 years old and the times has just changed. And art in that way can be a part of what sort of synchronizes the values and the time.